What if hell isn't a place after death, but the pain we keep revisiting every day? Near the end of his life, the man lying in that hospital bed wasn't a villain from any sacred text. He simply looked like someone who had been tired for a very, very long time. Years of addiction had worn him down, anger had pushed his family away, and there were whole decades where he insisted there was no God, no higher presence, no guiding light, just a life drifting wherever it happened to go. But on his final night, as rain tapped gently against the hospital window, he held the doctor's hand. He didn't ask a question. He declared it with a voice firm yet filled with a quiet fear. I know what comes next. I'm going to hell, and this time it will be forever. That will be my final judgment. The doctor looked at him for a long moment, not with theology, not with philosophy, but with the simple kindness of one human being to another. No, he said softly, everyone gets a second chance. Part 1. The fear beneath the question. The room fell silent after the doctor's words. The machines hummed. Somewhere down the hallway, a nurse laughed softly at a joke the universe didn't bother to record. And I often wonder, how many of us carry that same hidden terror? Not always in words, not always out loud, but tucked somewhere deep inside. The fear that one life, one brief, stumbling, fragile life, might decide the fate of an eternity. That the mistakes we couldn't undo, the wounds we couldn't heal, the things we wish we could take back, might follow us forever. It's a heavy story, isn't it? A story that turns life into a test and death into a final score. But here's the gentle question I want to explore with you today, not to challenge anyone's faith, but to offer a soft lantern to think by. If eternity stretches beyond anything we can imagine, how could 70 or 80 years ever be enough to define a human soul? Because none of us are finished creatures. We are becoming, always becoming. Even in old age, even in our final breath, we are still changing, still learning, still making amends quietly in the corners of our own hearts. So what if the man on that hospital bed wasn't facing a final sentence? What if he was standing at the beginning of something wider, something more merciful than he ever thought possible? Part 2. A soft Buddhist lens. This is where Buddhist thought offers a gentle voice, not to argue, not to contradict, but to accompany. Buddhism doesn't rush to declare who is saved and who is lost. It doesn't divide the world into chosen and condemned. Instead, it looks at the human heart the way a gardener looks at a garden, with patience for the soil it came from, with tenderness for the storms it endured, with hope for what it can still become. The Buddha never said, you are the sum of your worst moments. He never taught, one mistake ends everything. Instead, he pointed again and again to a simple truth. Everything is change. Nothing is fixed. Not even us. If we are always changing, then the soul is not a statue, it is a river. And a river can always shift its course. Even the man who lived in darkness for decades, even the woman who carries regrets she can barely speak aloud, even the person who hurt others because they were hurting inside, none of them are frozen in time. Nothing in Buddhism suggests that a being is punished forever, because forever in Buddhist thought doesn't make sense for something that is always, always changing. Part 3. The weight of a single lifetime. Think of it like this. A lifetime is a single breath in the lung of eternity, a moment, a flicker, a page in a book too vast for us to read. If someone falls in one chapter, why would the story end there? If someone breaks under the weight of trauma, why wouldn't they be allowed another chance to stand again? And if someone lived years lost in addiction, confusion, or pain, are they truly defined by the places where they collapsed? The Buddhist answer is gentle and unwavering. No. Because collapse is not the end of the story. It's the point from which the next chapter begins. We can always grow. We can always learn. We can always return to kindness. And because of that, no one is sentenced to eternal despair. Not because Buddhism denies wrongdoing, but because Buddhism believes in transformation. Even hell, in Buddhist teachings, is not a prison. It is a state of suffering that eventually changes when the heart changes. No place of torment lasts forever because no self lasts forever. And that, strangely, beautifully, is what makes compassion possible. Part 4. A universe that doesn't give up on you. Across many Buddhist stories, one theme repeats. No being is too lost. No being is too broken. No being is beyond a new beginning. And there is a story in the old Buddhist text that has always stayed with me. A quiet reminder that even the darkest chapter in a life is still just a chapter. It's the story of Devadatta, a man who lived in the Buddha's own lifetime. A man who let jealousy twist his heart, who tried to divide the community, who even attempted to harm the Buddha himself. If there were ever someone who seemed beyond redemption, it would be him. And yet, the Buddha didn't condemn him to an eternal punishment. He didn't say, "This is the end of your story." Instead, he said that after Devadatta passes through the suffering created by his own actions, he will one day awaken, one day become a Buddha himself. Imagine that. The man who fell the furthest still held a future of light. If he wasn't judged forever, then maybe no one is. There is always another dawn, always another chance to turn toward goodness, even if that turning is only a single breath of honesty or tenderness. Some teachings describe countless lifetimes not as punishment but as opportunity, opportunity to grow in wisdom, opportunity to soften the heart, opportunity to learn what love really means. In the Buddhist view, eternity isn't a courtroom. It's a classroom, and every soul, no matter how bruised, no matter how ashamed, is still a student, still capable of learning, still capable of becoming gentle, even in the final hour, even in the final breath. Part 5. Returning to the man in the hospital bed. When the doctor said, "Everyone gets a second chance," he wasn't making a theological argument. He was speaking a truth older than doctrine. A truth whispered in every tradition, a truth we feel in our own bones. People change, people soften, people wake up, sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, like winter giving way to spring. Maybe that man's second chance isn't here, maybe it isn't tomorrow or next week, maybe it opens only when he closes his eyes for the last time, but the point is it opens, because no being is ever finished. Not at 40, not at 80, not at death, and certainly not in eternity. Part 6, a closing reflection. So tonight, wherever you're listening from, your living room, your car, your quiet kitchen after the kids are asleep, I invite you to hold this thought gently. You are not your worst moment, and you are not beyond repair. If eternity exists, then compassion must stretch as far as eternity. Otherwise, it isn't compassion at all. And if a soul can truly grow, then one lifetime, with all its mistakes, distractions, and wounds, cannot possibly be the final word on who you are. There is always another bend in the river, always another chance to turn toward the light. And maybe, just maybe, that is the most hopeful thing we can believe about one another. Thank you for sitting with me today. If this brought you a little peace, a little warmth, a little space to breathe, I'm grateful. Until next time, may you move through your days with a softer heart and a gentler story about yourself. Take good care.